Good morning, good evening, good day, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Global E-commerce Experts and our webinar series. Many of you watch these webinars in a row when you're looking to expand your business, your e-commerce business. So excited to have you today talking more about the end point of your e-commerce career, or not career, but your e-commerce journey in that particular business. So we're excited today to be talking about exiting and what you should know about selling to aggregators in particular via a talk with ElevateBrands. Let's look a little bit at the expansion pathway. This is Global E-commerce Experts' well-trodden route to e-commerce expansion and success. It's the matrix that we show at the beginning of all of our webinars that explains the different facets of your expansion into the UK and the EU. Of course, what Global E-commerce Experts is famous for. Right on tagged on the back end of your e-commerce expansion is, of course, your exit. So anything that has a start and a middle almost or will always need some kind of ending. So there's multiple ways that you can exit a market. For some people, they'll withdraw, and for others, there'll be success and they'll be looking to sell their business or their brand, or maybe even just a piece of it. So after all of the discussion we've had over recent weeks and months, and videos you've watched surrounding compliance and your marketplace launch, 3PL, Brexit, and the challenges that come across that, now's the time to start talking about not how to exit or how to prepare your business for exit, but the real nitty-gritty of what it takes to do that. So we're excited to be joined by TJ today. Let's talk a bit about the agenda first. TJ is going to talk about the state of the market, when it's the right time to sell, and the types of buyers, and how you get to a deal done and the valuation. You all know me, of course, from other webinars. I hope you have listened. My name is Riki Hooker. I'm the General Manager here at Global E-commerce Experts. Happy to be hosting, and I'd like to welcome to you all TJ Hyland from ElevateBrands. TJ, thank you for coming. Thanks for being with us. Tell us a bit about you.
Of course, Riki, thank you for having me. I've been in the Amazon world since 2014. Had previously worked at a couple companies that everyone might know called Payoneer and World First. So typically helping businesses that were selling cross-border or with working capital functions. And then about a couple months ago, I joined ElevateBrands as the Director of Global Partnerships. So that role kind of sits between the acquisition side and the operational side of our business, right? So on the acquisition side, working with businesses that are looking to sell, and then also working with services and solutions like GEE to help your clients to determine when is the right time for them or what they might need to do before exiting. And we're going to talk a bit about that today, and then also like the operational side, so all the different tools and tricks and operations that we do to not only take these brands over, but then to grow them, right? So our MO as a business is not just to buy a business and flip it, it's to retain that and to get to the next level. So happy to dive into that a bit today and go from there.
Fantastic. I think we see a lot of curiosity from our clients, thousands of clients that we work with who are, broadly speaking, Amazon sellers, lots of other platforms as well, but most of our sellers are on Amazon. And we see an enormous amount of curiosity and excitement surrounding who's getting bought by, who's getting bought. That degree of excitement, they have this tangible thing which is desirable to, let's face it, an exploded number of different organizations in the last 2 to 3 years, at the, in the most extremis. So let's kick off. I mean, I'm really excited to find out how this all works. Tell us a bit about Elevate.
So a little bit about Elevate is we're a little bit different, right? So our two co-founders, Ryan and James, they started in the retail arbitrage world back in 2016. All those orange bags that you see there are actually Nike and Adidas sneakers. So they would go to the outlet malls and wherever it is, buy wholesale, and then go online and sell retail. So they know the struggles, and frankly, now most of our team know the struggles and the ups and downs and of selling online. In the fall of 2019, early 2020, we actually pivoted a bit and looked to acquire our first brand. Over that period of time, we've acquired 25 brands. I think that's probably closer to 30 now. We're averaging closing about one a week. So it's pretty hyper growth here. We have teams all over the world with main headquarters both in New York and in Austin, Texas, where I sit today. From a financial standpoint, because when you're looking to sell to an aggregator, you want to ensure that they have the means to pay you, and we'll get into that a little bit. But we've raised a significant amount of capital, and I think that's something that we'll continue to do. We're on a really good growth path, and it's upwards from here. And then, like we said, from where we were with James and Ryan, sort of doing retail arbitrage, into where we are now across all the brands, it's a massive operation. And I think, from a brand manager perspective, from a PPC, logistics, all that, we have that all in-house. So it really puts us sort of in a right position for success in the long term. What I wanted to talk about first, I think, is a bit of the state of the market. And Riki, you touched on it. And I really think, we are entering a golden age for Amazon sellers, right? For FBA sellers. If we look back to, when I started in this industry in 2014 or in 2016, 17, 18, a lot of these businesses were building significant business, whether it's private label or retail arbitrage, whatever it is, but didn't have an opportunity to capitalize on what they had built. Now, with the emergence of private equity money or venture capital money in the form of aggregators or operators, we are seeing unprecedented wealth creation for sellers, for these brands to make sort of generational money for their business. And where I think we see that first come in is via the last sort of 18 months, right? Fortunately, unfortunately, COVID-19, the pandemic, the lockdowns have really pumped up the growth in e-commerce. And I think we've plateaued a little bit since, but from 2019 into through 2020, there was a clear hockey stick growth numbers. And
is this Amazon, TJ? Is this e-commerce as a whole?
Sure. So this is e-commerce, okay. Right? I think we know Amazon to be at the forefront of that, probably leading a significant number of these growth percentages. But this is looking at e-commerce as a whole. So when you look at growth in e-commerce, at the same time, coupled with the influx of capital, which is on the next slide, looking about how much funds have been raised by aggregators and operators. What you'll see is, I think in the year 2020 or into 2021, over $5.5 billion of new capital has been raised by Amazon acquirers to acquire new business, right? So what that tells me is the investment community is still looking at this place as an incredibly hot space, as if we didn't already know not only e-commerce and Amazon, but sort of the whole aggregator operator world is here to stay for quite a bit. I'm not going to look too far down the road, but I think the people investing in this are typically very smart people making very smart decisions with their money, looking to get a return. So that's where we sit as well, and we'll dive into that a little bit. But when we're looking at a brand, what are we looking for? What's the opportunity from an operational standpoint? What's the opportunity from a growth standpoint? And that's really what we see here. So, early 2020, mid 2020, the multiples of being paid out were 2x, maybe 3x. Now it's 4x, 5x, 6x based off your SDE, which is seller's discretionary earnings, or sometimes in certain situations calculated as EBITDA. But this is now making significantly more value for these brands than ever before. And that's kind of what we're touching on here, is sort of like a whole new unique window of opportunity for these brands to capitalize on. And I think what's important is, from our perspective, is to acknowledge that every brand is not ready today, right? And whether that is the brand's not in the right position, or the business owner is not in the right position, or their family, or whatever their goal is, they don't have to sell today, and we're not looking to pressure anyone to sell. But what you can do is put your business in a better position, whether you're looking to sell today, in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months, so that you can be in the position to maximize the value of what you've built. So we use the acronym GOAT, which is Growth, Operations, Accounting, and Trenches. All really about positioning the business in the best perspective. And all really about knowing and understanding how your business is operating from A to Z, from placing that order in China and the timelines and everything through, getting it to the US or to wherever you're selling, and then the sale, and then getting paid, and then, bringing your funds back, or whatever it may be. We look to help businesses align on these things, because this is what we're looking for. So when you approach the conversation, not only with Elevate, but with any of the acquirers or operators in the space, they're looking for strong businesses. So if you can take a couple things from today while you're getting ready to exit, to put yourself in a better position, that's really important. And I think we'll touch on a couple more of these as we dive in. What I thought was important was to also share what ElevateBrands is doing, and what our growth plan looks like, right? So when we acquire a brand, we are looking for brands that still have opportunity. It's really exciting to us when a brand owner is still excited about their brand. Sometimes, frankly, a brand comes in and, they're not really, they say, oh, I just don't want to do this anymore, I'm tired, which happens. And entrepreneurial burnout is definitely a thing. But when the brand owner comes in and we have those initial conversations, we say, well, if you had all of the resources in the world, if you had all the capital, if you had all the inventory, if you had all the PPC teams, what would you do to grow your brand? And you typically, when you ask someone that, they'll list you out 10 different things. And when they do, that's what's exciting to us, right? From an operational standpoint, what we look to do is, improve conversion, push the review mode, increase traffic. So take what they've done and then put our engine, which can sit on top of it, of our compiled resources of the logistics side and the pricing there, and the PPC and all these different tools that we have, that we operate sort of at an enterprise level, and apply it to an individual brand. Whether that's launching new SKUs or launching to new marketplaces, onto Canada, UK, EU, those are really like important factors in our growth. Because when you look at what we're doing, people are investing in us, and we're investing in those businesses, and everyone back up the chain wants to see the return. To touch on what GEE does, we definitely think that selling internationally is really important piece of that. Whether you as the business owner are doing it today, and it's a key line item in your accounting, or you leave it as an opportunity for the acquirer to do, and to take the business into Germany and get that set up and start listing and selling there. We have a couple examples of that, but sort of what we're looking at here is sort of our post-acquisition performance. So how are we growing the brands that we are acquiring? And it is pretty significantly. So these numbers are a couple months old now. So they've actually grown even more. The interesting part is when we started back in early 2020, the size of the brands that we were acquiring were a little bit on the smaller end, right? So, and as we acquire more, as we went on and acquired more brands, the size of the brands that we were acquiring also increased. In that case, a lot of times the growth opportunity increases. So this is just a little sort of pulling the curtains back on Elevate and sort of a lot of the returns that we're seeing on the individual brands that we're operating. So this is a question that comes up often, where a brand, you know, in any conversation says, why should I sell you my business? Or, you know, should I sell you my business now? Or this is going on with my business, you know, I'm looking to get out. And, you know, timing is everything, you know, and the timing has to be right from the acquirer side as well. Excuse me. But these are a number of questions that we ask to the brand owner to get a feel and a vibe of why they are looking to sell. You know, I mentioned it before about sort of entrepreneurial burnout. Is the daily grind becoming harder and harder? You know, we've seen significant compression on margins because of increased freight cost. Is that now taking the money that you would have used to buy more inventory, to do this, to do that? You know, how are you operating your business? Is it a sense of, you know, you just don't want to do it anymore and there's still the opportunity? Or is it like your niche is becoming way too competitive and it's too much hassle for you to keep up every single day? Or are you concerned about XYZ from Amazon perspective, or, you know, a black hat perspective, or have you been attacked? You know, your listing's been attacked. And then also it comes back to like, how is your actual business performing? You know, are you having a great 12 months previous? You know, and a lot of businesses are, because it's, you know, looking at, you know, well, when you look at 2020 compared to 2019, you know, now we're coming to a point where a lot of businesses are flat, but still growing compared to 2020. But as we touched on in the beginning, 2020 had unprecedented growth. So it's kind of like allows us, our business and our, you know, mergers and acquisition analysts to look into it and figure out what is the growth profile of this business. Is there still opportunity? What does the competitors look like on the different marketplaces? So, and then also, you know, I think for us is a lot of businesses worry with Amazon, right? And with, you know, just selling on the one marketplace. And, you know, obviously there's the opportunity for diversification on multiple Amazon marketplaces around the world, or, you know, Walmart and eBay and D2C solutions, or, you know, Frugo or Price Minister, you know, all these other options. You know, they may not have the same traffic as Amazon does, but they could potentially help you feel a little bit better about, you know, where your business is sitting. And, you know, also, if you're not ready to sell, you know, what does that look like in terms of feeling comfortable?
TJ, how do you balance between the business having significant opportunity and therefore the seller seeing that opportunity, and the seller and a business which the seller has not necessarily exhausted, but has you know, has expanded much of that kind of ready opportunity away? How do you, where a seller, surely when a seller sees, makes that list, they see that opportunity, and it's better for them to maximize that rather than to sell. How do you balance that part?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, and it's something that, you know, we face probably every other day when looking at brands or talking to brands. It's like, you know, I think the real point is, did the seller do everything that they could most effectively in terms of the opportunity? You know, when they look at, you know, their logistics costs, when they look at product diversification, and, you know, a lot of the times what comes to us is a product on Amazon and not yet a brand, or like a, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 different SKUs on Amazon, but they haven't really built the brand around it. And, you know, a lot of the times we feel like we can build that brand, even if the brand owner thinks that they've done all they could. I also don't think that a brand owner would say, I've exhausted every option, but they can, you know, we can find that other opportunities, because I think when you look at what we've done with the amount of brands that we've acquired, we've learned a lot already, and it's only been 18 months, right? So testing and trying new things, and seeing what worked on this brand might work on this brand in terms of listing on a new marketplace. Maybe this product is really good in Germany, so like or Poland, and let's roll out with Allegro, right? Like, so all these different options in terms of international expansion, product diversification, keywords, driving traffic, there's so many different levers to pull. I think there's always opportunity. It's just a matter of what that opportunity is. I think back to a brand that I saw that had pretty significant numbers. They were managing PPC in-house, and they admitted they were not doing a very good job at it. We looked at their listing, and they had no A+ content, no videos, nothing like that. So for me, that's a ton of opportunity for them to increase rank, increase sales, as that goes, and then kind of cycle that up. And then they're only selling in the US. So what does that look like? Increasing and optimizing the supply chain. All those are little opportunities that we feel that we can do, where a brand owner might just say, this is how I've always done it, so this is how I do it.
And that's human nature, isn't it? Okay, well, that's as the same in any business. I mean, we spend our time here at GEE helping businesses expand, and yet we could still fill a whiteboard on a wall of what else we could do to help grow our own business.
Right.
When we spend our time expertly guiding our clients as part of our own, well, I'd like to think it was expertly, but guiding our own clients' expansion journey. So I can see that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So the one thing that I want to touch on here is sort of options that a brand might have. So sort of there's the broker side and then the direct sales side, and there's a ton of brokers out there, and we work with a number of them, if not have had conversations or referrals from all of them. So brokers are good till they're not good, right? So there's definitely ones that are better than others, and I'm not going to say any names, but the broker has to be your advocate, and you have to ensure that you are getting the value out of them, because typically they're going to be charging 10+% commission. Now, when I say a business is good to use a broker, it's if you don't really know what's going on, but you have something valuable here, a broker will help you position your brand in the best way to sell for the best multiple. They know the right players at all the right aggregators or operators. They know what your business is doing today financially, what you could expect in a multiple in your category. They have a lot more knowledge. That being said, depending on who you talk to, from a direct sale, like directly to an aggregator, you can get a lot of that knowledge. What I think is, required is to have conversations with everyone, right? And how I think you should break it down is, talking to a number of aggregators, say 3. And then if that doesn't go through, you say it's your top 3 when you rank them out, one really big one and a medium-sized one and maybe a smaller one, because everyone's going to be able to give you something differently. So especially when you're first going out there for a direct sale, it's to understand sort of where you sit in the market. I think what's also interesting there is to look at, do you have everything in your business in place? Can you explain every trend, every number, every situation? Because what I would say is you only have one opportunity to tell these buyers your story, right? So if you come in and your financials are ABC, and our team's looking at your numbers and say, you know what, Riki, can you explain like what's going on here? And you can't, and then you come back in a couple of days with completely different financials, that trust is out the window typically, right? Because what were these numbers and what are these numbers, and what's the truth compared to what's reality? So I obviously am biased because I'm sitting here on the direct sales side, but I think there's other values there to understanding what your options are, and not necessarily burning all your bridges at once. Sometimes when you go to a broker, they put it out to everyone, and if you don't have everything in line from day one, then everyone's going to see that. So with direct sale, going to a couple of options at first, then kind of reviewing if you need to. Otherwise, maybe you have all your ducks in a row, and those aggregators that you want to work with you, and happily ever after. We were talking about the types of buyers, heavily in the aggregator space, but there are more. And there are more in terms of, private equity. There's a dog or pet supplies, pet food brand that sold directly to private equity for some pretty significant numbers last week or last month, sorry. The other side is just investment, right? So you have to figure out what's best for your business. Do you want to still keep running it? At Elevate, we're also interested in doing joint ventures and partnerships, right? So if a brand owner knows there's so much more potential in their business, but just needs a little bit of XYZ to get there, that's really exciting to us, that they still believe in their business, they still believe in the growth. So as a seller, there's certain questions that you should be asking. What does the deal structure look like? What is the experience of the team in both the M&A side, but also the operational side, because we'll get to it, but deal structures is part of this as well. How are the brands that they've acquired growing or not over time? How much money do we have? Everyone wants to make sure that they get paid, right, for whatever they agree. And just on the last point here, this is the question that comes in every day, right? What's my business worth? And it's a lot more complicated than just give me a number and I'll give you a number. So we typically will have those conversations. We will work with you, if it's a brand that's of interest to us, to figure it out and very quickly get a business a letter of intent if that's something that we're looking at. So when you turn to the valuation, there's a lot of things that are not deal breakers, but there's obviously on the right-hand column that are better than the ones on the left-hand column. From our perspective, the worst thing that could happen is we acquire a brand, we pay you $5 million, and 2 weeks later or a month later, whatever it is, that brand and Amazon store gets shut down because they have black hat evidence. Part of the agreement in which you're signing is that you're not doing any black hat or any sort of actions that violate Amazon's terms of services. So a brand could be asked to pay back funds if that store can't get back up and running. Now, I haven't heard that happen, and I hopefully don't anticipate something like that happening, but it's definitely possible. And then when we look a little bit further into the brand itself and what you're doing, when you think about what we're doing, we are operating multiple brands across multiple marketplaces. So the more simple a brand is, at some point, it's more attractive to us. When there's 1,000 SKUs, that's 1,000 SKUs we need to add into our catalog and manage from an inventory perspective, from a listing perspective, keyword, PPC, logistics. So, if you have a hero SKU that's doing sort of 80% of your business, while you might think that is risky, that's also in a point valuable as well, right? Because for us, it's like looking at how can we get the most out of what you have. When we look at poor reviews or no growth story, it comes back to being able to explain trends in your business and where you came from, where you're going, what that looks like. And then we just get into the competitive side of things. If you sell in XYZ and there's 100 other sellers in XYZ, you may be doing significant numbers, but likely your margins are depleting, like your costs are probably going up because of external sources. So looking at how you run your business in terms of the supply chain, in terms of the niche and the product category in which you've picked, and then also the marketplaces and where you might be. The hyper seasonality one is, it's not none of these are deal breakers either, but it's not a deal breaker. But we want a business that's going to be operating and generating revenue 12 months a year, and significant revenue. So, the ones on the right are sort of good tactics, right? Like things that you should be doing, things that you are likely doing as a brand owner. So, looking at strong businesses with a strong history, with a growth story, and that are of a significant size. And this is just, again, to peel back the curtain a little bit into what our process is, right? So, typically we would start with an NDA and then a letter of intent if that's a business that we wish to acquire. So we would look, obviously do some pre-due diligence at the financials and have conversations with the brand owner. If we give you that LOI, we're pretty serious. We're not looking to renege on any of that, and we're not looking to change the multiples or anything like that. What does happen is, after that, where we're looking from like mid week 1 to week 2 to week 3 is where the deeper due diligence is being done. When we look at sort of all the processes where, it comes back to being truthful, right? Because if you're not truthful up front, when we enter into this LOI, everything will come out in this middle period, and it's not fun, right? If you have to backtrack, we don't want to do it. And in reality, what it would likely happen is, if you're untruthful about XYZ, it could decrease your valuation, and ultimately your payout. So,
and how often does that happen, TJ? How often have you come across that situation?
Yeah, not very often at all.
Okay, that's good news.
I know back to one option where that did happen, but what that does, like I say, is like it would decrease the valuation of the business and then ultimately decrease the payout. So now the seller thinks that, I'm not getting paid as much. I don't want to go through with this anymore, right? It is an agreement. There's definitely two sides to this, right? So both parties have to be in agreement. So it does not happen often, but that's kind of why I echo, to be honest up front, to tell your whole story up front of A all the way through to Z back to A, right? Some of these brands have been around a long time and some of them are new, and, everyone operates their business a little bit differently. But from there, seeing as we pass due diligence, the funds are in escrow, and then it comes into the actual transfer of the account. So transfer of ownership of the Amazon account or D2C store, or whatever it may be. And then just a couple days later or weeks later, it's getting into the close. Now, this is sort of standard, but it's the processing time. More complicated deals or larger brands or whatever it may be might be a little longer. Some of those are shorter. But as it says here, it's time to celebrate, but it's also, you're not out of the clear yet, right? Because transferring details on Amazon from one owner to another can be complicated. And there are hiccups that can go through. So you want to make sure you're working with somebody that is experienced in doing that has done this, that, in our instance, close to 30 times, and some of the other ones more and some of the other ones less. So you have to make sure you understand that your buyer is not only good on the acquisition side, but on the operational side. And sort of when you're going to get paid, how much you're going to get paid. Is it, what's the deal structure of upfront versus escrow? Is there an earnout, right? And this really comes back to the operational side. So is there an earnout? So an earnout is where you as a brand owner would be paid a percentage if certain milestones are hit, whether that's in year 1, year 2, or broken up by monthly or quarterly. All that is configured in the agreement. But, are you comfortable with the operator to hit those milestones? Because ultimately, as the buyer, typically you're done. You don't have to do anything anymore when it's 100% acquisition, but you're reliant on that operator to grow the business. Now I know stories of businesses that were acquired and then kind of fell off, right? But that guy had an earnout. So he unfortunately had to leave, or is leaving, some money on the table, right? Because perhaps that acquirer did not know how to operate in his niche with his competition, and all that stuff. So, when we pivot to sort of how Elevate differentiates ourselves from some of the other people, it's back to the story that I told in the beginning, right? Not only are we sellers, but we've been selling for a long time. So when we look at, we've been around since 2016. We have significant people that used to run, operate, and grow Amazon businesses on the operational side. Like I said, we've acquired a significant number of brands, and we're growing them. And then also on our M&A side, there's a lot of experience acquiring businesses, and as we do more and more, the more situations are coming around. In July, we raised $250 million in a Series B. So we do have significant capital to buy these businesses and to operate these businesses. And I think the other part, and lastly, is like, we and I understand the natural ebbs and flows of selling online, right? And the opportunity that there is. And I think ultimately it comes back to, what is your goal as the business owner? Not what is your goal with selling your business, but what do you want down the road, in 5 years, in 10 years, or whatever it is. Will selling your business today at X multiple help you get there? Perhaps you're done with Amazon and you want to invest all this in Bitcoin, or if you want to put this money into real estate or something like that. I think figuring out what your end goal is, working back from there, is really important. And that's kind of, across all business, right? You need to know what's right for you.
Wow. Well, I think that gives a really well. Thank you, TJ. I think that gives a really in-depth view. I'm curious as to, you talk a little bit about the $500,000 of EBITDA. What's the smallest kind of operating FBA business that a brand like Elevate have had an interest in? Say all of the other boxes were ticked, but it was a slightly smaller business. Where does appetite begin rather than be? Is there a baseline?
Yeah, I would say like over time that number has grown, right? So when we were smaller with less capital, the size of the business that we're looking to acquire is a little bit smaller. As we get more capital, we buy larger businesses. Because if you can buy a 10 SKU business operating at a $3 million EBITDA, or a 10 SKU business operating at $500,000 EBITDA, it's still going to take a team of the same size to run those businesses, from a brand manager and PPC and logistics and all that, right? So, for us, it's looking at bigger brands now. I would say that the smallest one that we're looking for now is that number is $500,000 EBITDA, or EBITDA, seller's discretionary earnings, or sort of earnings, however the seller defines it in terms of their books and their accounting. And I think the one thing to touch on there that I didn't is, from the accounting standpoint, a really helpful thing that I see is, or that I would like to say, is that you'd be surprised at how many businesses do not have books, do not have accounting. They rely on reports from Amazon and say, these are my sales, and this is my cost of goods sold because I know I filled that invoice, and my PPC, and they have it in like one Excel sheet. That's not good, right? When you're looking to do a transaction of multi-million dollars, you will want to have an accountant understand your books, and also there's the difference between cash accounting and accrual accounting, and we would absolutely recommend that you do accrual accounting, because it will help you and likely increase the valuation of your business based on what gets taken into account.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of that, especially in an Amazon business which is 2 or 3 years old, or maybe a few years more than that, is you get this kind of you're growing for something that's very, very small, and you put that together yourself. And it's okay, right, perhaps when you're doing this on a more amateur basis, or on a smaller basis, to use Amazon reports to run your business. It's probably there's the snowball effect, isn't there, as you grow. We did a really cool podcast a few weeks ago for surrounding the credibility of products that are in stores, that are not just in e-commerce, that are in bricks and mortar stores. And it'd be interesting to hear your take about whether you see taking products from brands that have been acquired, and if there's any appetite to those being pushed back into kind of bricks and mortar stores rather than just being online, and whether that's part of the strategy in any way, shape, or form, whether it's purely e-commerce.
Yeah, I think the aggregator operator space is a new wave of a consumer goods company, right? Consumer products company. And with that, it's, e-commerce first. And in many instances here, it's Amazon or marketplaces first, then it's D2C. But like I've touched on, like what we're looking to do is to grow the brand, right? And to grow the financials behind it. We want these to be worldwide known brands, or in many instances, even just national brands. So getting products seen by more and more consumers is absolutely the goal. And if you can optimize your supply chain and your inventory, where you can have a relationship with Walmart physical, perhaps that helps, with Walmart online and vice versa. Or if you could have, TJ Maxx or Target or any of these, sort of everything stores, that's really an option. And then also when you look at like a lot of the beauty products and you look at a lot of like cosmetics, if you can work with influencers who then promote your products, and then you go to a distributor for beauty salons, or this distributor or that distributor, having it really comes down to having the capital to have the inventory, but it also comes down to the relationships to get into those brick and mortars, right? And with that, you have to prove that there is consumer demand. So I think taking what you've done and built on the e-commerce side, whether that's marketplace or D2C, proving that people are looking for this product will help with that entry into brick and mortar. But I think from an Elevate perspective, that's absolutely something we're looking for. And, is it today? No, but I think it's not too far down the road.
Okay, it's interesting that you talk about cosmetics, and on that topic, I just want to do a shout out to one of our trusted and esteemed clients, Steve. Thanks for joining us today live. Are there any particular products which are tricky or are kind of a taboo from both from an Elevate perspective and from an aggregator perspective in particular? And I mentioned that because I'd heard and I've seen it a bit trickier for cosmetics and healthcare, health type products.
Yeah, so I would say that digestibles in any form are a little bit more complicated because of the compliance that goes with it, right? Anytime you're having somebody put anything inside, or in many instances with cosmetics, on their body, there's a higher risk there in terms of something going wrong and then being sued, right? Which is not what anyone wants. From our perspective, we generally stay away from human supplements. So those, I feel like there's 1,000 supplement sellers on Amazon because there's a course that teaches people how to do it, and that's the example. But cosmetics is a little bit different. The problem I think with cosmetics a lot of times it's super competitive, right? And how do you stand out from your competitors on Amazon versus like the L'Oreal's or the high-end brands, right? So, why would somebody pick your product? The other thing is, and I think this is an instance of what we've seen is a business making claims that aren't true, right? So they claim this product had, was X free. It didn't have this vitamin or this, mineral, I guess. And then when the testing was done, it did, right? So how do you look at that and, understand from our perspective, like, what is this brand? So you're right, in the cosmetics world, there are a lot of issues or potential issues where there isn't in the toy world or in the outdoor space or in the fitness world, right? So anytime there's a human involved in taking it or putting it on or whatever it is, and that also said, when there's human choice in it, and that's also why we stay away from fashion, right? Because that changes so often, and it changes. I might like this today, but I don't like it tomorrow. But I'm going to leave my review tomorrow when I don't like it. And also my review is not that the product is bad or not that the product doesn't fit. The review is that I don't like it. And like, I can't control your opinion. I put a good product out there, right? So there's so many variables with that, that why we kind of stay away from those ones. But yeah.
That is interesting, because I think you know, there's a significant demand for that, and that's probably pent up because you know, it's a side of it's a side of the market which is less desirable from less desirable is not the right word, but perhaps you know, a more challenging landscape from that side of things. It's interesting you talk about you know, this kind of new a new world from that perspective of selling FBA businesses. In the long term, what effect do you think that these that a significant number of aggregator purchases will have on the Amazon selling model? And by that I mean, what was a landscape of lots and lots of small sellers with lots of varied skills, and there's an opportunity to win big by being good at it. All of a sudden, that those sellers are find themselves coming up against a wall of professional teams of brand builders through brands that have been purchased and put into aggregators. Do you think that'll have a long-term effect?
Yes and no. The short answer is no, right? So if you look at all the aggregators combined, maybe they've to date acquired like 600, 700 brands, probably less than 1,000 brands. There's over a million sellers on Amazon. Yeah, on Amazon US. So when you look at that percentage, like it's negligible in terms of that. What I do think we are going to see more and more of is brands built to sell, right? So whether that's brand people who have exited, who have come back because they know how to do it, kind of rinse and repeat, get the business to a certain point, be aligned from day one with what an aggregator is looking for in terms of key metrics and sourcing and all that, and built to sell, and then flip that. What I also think is, you know, we'll see a lot of businesses, maybe they're more like the mom and pop shop and not ready to sell, is to diversify off Amazon. And to your point, whether that's D2C or brick and mortar or whatever it is, I think that will be a necessity as well. Because we view that as a growth necessity as well. But when you look at the numbers of D2C websites that you can purchase a consumer good from, you know, that's way more than 1 million, right? So, you know, while I think in certain niches, you know, that maybe an aggregator or an operator might start to own, it might be more competitive than, you know, to win the buy box or to get on page one or wherever it is. But there's so many tricks that and different levers to pull that I'm not concerned about brands being competitive, because in reality, we might have better margins because of sort of enterprise level operations. But I find that I learn from sellers every single day of different things that they know, because they're in the trenches every day. Whereas our brand managers might sit a little bit above that. So
very interesting. Okay. To wrap up, TJ, a couple of questions from another one of our amazing clients, Juliet. Juliet, thanks for joining us live today, and thank you for asking questions. Juliet's got a great question here. We talked about the less desirable categories. What are the most desirable categories that have performed well?
Yeah, I'll speak to the Elevate portfolio, I guess. You know, we've operated in outdoors. We have the #1 beach tent on Amazon. We've operated in the fitness space, in the pet space, in like the pet supplements, pet toys. That's a really competitive space, but it's also, you know, what do you think is like, what are people buying on Amazon, right? I would buy something for my pet on Amazon, although I don't have one. But then, you know, also, you know, one of our good products is a matcha tea. So it's like things that people are buying routinely as well. You know, whether that's on a monthly basis or a couple month basis. You know, return buyers are obviously key to growth. But yeah, like I said, any other category aside from sort of human supplements and fashion, we're interested in. And to be honest, if you are a top seller in human supplements or fashions, I would love to have a conversation as well. Because if you can provide all the compliance documents that are needed on the supplement side, or all the regulations, even before talking about expanding into the EU and those regulations, those are things that make it attractive to us. The most attractive thing is likely when a brand has a patent or multiple patents, right? Something to protect our investment. So if no matter what category you're in, if you had a product patent or a marketing patent or whatever it may be, or utility patent, those are really interesting to us as well.
Well, there you go, Julia. I hope you wrote down notes there, and you're going to get buying to know what you need to be purchasing to pivot. Although I think you've got a pretty desirable brand there yourself. TJ, thank you so much. We're running close to running out of time here, so thank you so much for your input today. I think there's a real growing interest. We talk about just a few hundred brands that have been bought by the total number of aggregators, and all there's millions of sellers or million of sellers, and the thousands that are being onboarded as with sellers every day. It's something that's gained such a huge amount of noise and publicity, because there's this kind of turnkey kind of wonder exit to the fruits of your hard work, which is kind of unheard of in most business sectors. So not only have you got this magical business sector that you can do from home, that you can do in your own time, if that's the way that you're running your business, but at 2 million of turnover or $500,000 of EBITDA, you're probably not doing this in your own time. It's taking up all your time. But so look, we'd love to help our clients get in touch with you. You can see the details there of how to get in touch with global e-commerce experts, and you can also contact TJ directly. You can see TJ's details there on the screen if you're interested in finding out more about what to do next, or if you have any further questions. Sorry, there's a few questions that I've run out of time to answer. TJ, thank you so much for joining us. Anything more to add?
Yeah, just on the last point, and like it touches on the last question that came in. Let's have a conversation. I'm happy to have a conversation, or anyone from our team, with any brand. If we don't necessarily fit in the bucket that's working for you today, perhaps we can help connect you with other people. We generally like to play nice in this space, and we feel like in the aggregator operator space, there's enough pie to go around, right? So if it's not a right fit for us, we can make an introduction with you to, say, a broker who can help perhaps put you in a better position, or to another aggregator, or we can help you grow your business, right? So maybe if you're on the smaller side, we're working on an incubate program to help businesses sort of get from A to Z, or A to B even, so that we can be more interested in their size and the growth opportunity too. So like I said, feel free to contact us. That's my email, tj@elevatebrands.com, and that's our website as well if you guys just want to learn some more.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening, and we really do look forward to seeing you again on another webinar in the future. Thank you very much.